Welcome to CWC Art and Soul with Catherine. I am Catherine Whalen-Costin, also known as Clarity Whisperer. I am the host and producer of the shows, a series of deep exploration into higher visions, better ways to live on planet Earth, new insights that may help us move beyond the old ways and into new, more harmonious systems that empower all, not just some. What if it isn't a choice between black or white? What if we can choose from a color palette far beyond what has been explored before? What if? So many possibilities. If this kind of exploration intrigues you, please grab yourself a chair, put your feet up, as long as you aren't operating machinery, of course, and join us to mine for gems of wisdom. No medical advice is offered on any podcast on this channel. If you require medical assistance, please contact your healthcare practitioner. You can find previous podcasts on the website cwcartandsoul.com or on Apple Podcasts or on the YouTube channel. The guest list and future shows are also listed on the website. Now let's get exploring and have some fun. Welcome. It's March 31st, 2022. This is Catherine Whalen-Costin, and I wanted to present a short podcast discussion around some of the things that are happening in our world right now, which I see as another sign that I welcome the fall of the patriarchal beliefs, the system that has propped up so much oppression in the world, particularly of women. Before I get into the fullness of what I'm thinking here, I wanted to let you know that I've got some exciting guests podcasts coming up this month, April. One of them is Dolores Eaton Mikado, and we talked about her journey from being as an entrepreneur, from being a jewelry saleswoman to a spiritual counselor, and how the road that took her to where she is today. It's very interesting and an enjoyable discussion. I also discussed with Carol Serene Borgens, who is a channeler of divine source energy called PAX. P-A-X. She is the author of a number of books. One we talked about a fair amount was her book, Do Unto Earth, It's Not Too Late. We also discussed some of the things that Pax has revealed in books through her, that she's written about: the Bermuda Triangle mysteries, the origins of humans on planet Earth. These are just a few that I found fascinating. She also touched on what really happened to Amelia Earhart. These are all things that I find fascinating. Her books cover those things, but we talked about her journey. We talked about how she came to her spiritual gifts, as well as the books that she has written. She's an animal communicator, a medium, and she does automatic writing. So both of those are coming in April. I think they're going to be, you'll find them very informative, interesting, worthy of exploration. Today I wanted to touch briefly on a subject that is very complex as far as I can see. It came up because it was such a public display at the Oscars. And what I feel has been really exposed here is an old belief system, very old, where men were taught that their spouses, girlfriends, children were property property that belonged to them, that defined them, who they married, how their children behave. It's the reason that a lot of religions encouraged men to use corporal punishment, to spare the rod and spoil the child attitude. When I saw the display at the Oscars, my first thought was, did she need protecting? Was his wife under some form of threat, or was he feeling threatened? There is no time when violence, assaulting another person, is justified, in my opinion. None. But the fact that it happened in the public, to me, is part of our spiritual awakening, part of this evolution that we talk about all the time. We are shifting into the fifth dimension. The earth is already there. This old 3D stuff is leaving. This patriarchal dominance of making men believe that they have a right to and an obligation to defend their property, and that includes their wife. Because when I heard the outbursts, he was saying, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. Very possessive pronouns there, very much indicative of the belief that I must do this. I must defend my property because it's myself that's being threatened here. And I must say that this behavior, this outburst that we saw, is no different than what I've seen over the years in a lot of social settings. When I was a young woman going out dancing in nightclubs and bars, there was always situations where some women would incite a situation where they would say another guy insulted them and expect the guy that was their love of their life or wannabe to defend them, to do something, to protect her honor. I mean, these are mindsets that have been ingrained in us for a very long time. Men used to do duels over the honor of a woman. There is so much involved in this that goes back through our heritage, regardless of your culture. And what I find so fascinating is that this part of the reason I see it as a symptom of this patriarchal belief system more than anything, and the trauma that it's caused. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not trying to diagnose anyone. But what I saw, I've seen before so many times. Two men fighting over or using the tool is the woman as their, I'm better than you are, I'm protecting my thing. That the woman herself is almost irrelevant, that she is posturing as a victim and giving that signal to the man that is in her life to do something about it, to not allow somebody to insult me, which makes it sound like women are powerless. If a woman is insulted by something someone says, she has the ability to speak for herself. She doesn't have to resort to violence either. A verbal insult, even a joke, it may be hurtful, it may be inappropriate, but it doesn't, hitting the person isn't going to solve that, isn't going to change that. Violence is not going to change the situation, so why do we do it? I think it's ingrained in us. By sayings, by slogans, anything worth having is worth fighting for. So having sounds like you own it, ownership. And I've talked about this in my book, my ebook, which is coming out in paperback very soon, Permission to Breathe. This is one of the big insights that I realized, this idea of ownership. Who owns women and children? And why are we thinking that they should be owned? In any culture. We've abolished slavery in most cultures, in most countries. formally, but we still have the belief that there's a master of the household and the head of the household is a man, and that he must rise to protect his family. And what I find interesting is that when I'm looking at in Canada and I'm looking at the statistics for family violence, I'm quoting here, of all reported violent crime in 2016, now these statistics are a little older here, more than 1/4 resulted from family violence. Almost 60% of family violence victims were women and girls. Think about that. And I don't think that statistic's gotten any better. The violence that's happening, that women and children needing protecting from, seems for the most part to be happening in intimate relationships in the home. And so these outbursts, these public outbursts, are a symptom of a deeper trauma. And when you grow up as a child and you see your father beating your mother and you're unable to protect her, you're a child, you're seeing that, you grow up and believe that you're going to make it right. You're going to not allow anyone to do that to your belongings, your family. And we need to get to the root of this so that the symptoms of it are addressed, not just this one-time thing that was so public. It was public and a lot of people felt it because it's a part of our world. It's happening in homes. It's happening in our society in all different cultures where women are controlled, manipulated, oppressed by the very people who say they're protecting their family. So we have a problem here. We have a problem because we're only looking at, not everyone, but a lot of people are only looking at the inappropriateness of a slap. That it was inappropriate because it was at the Oscars, because it was public, because it was out of context of what was normal. And when Will Smith made his statement that because of celebrity, he is supposed to accept abuse. Well, that's not true. That's something you just don't want your children to get that message. No abuse is acceptable, and no one deserves to be abused because of their celebrity or because of anything, because of their station in life, because of their gender, because of their sexuality or the way they're expressing themselves, the way they dress. No one deserves violence. And we can't keep saying that it's okay because it's normal, or we've always done this, or a man has to defend his wife, or he has to protect his wife. A woman protects her family also, and we do it in very different ways. We've been taught to not use violence. And I'm not saying that women can't use violence, because they do. There are definitely statistics of where women are using violence against their families as well. However, women were victims of intimate partner homicide at a rate of 4 times greater than men in Canada in 2016, according to the government website. So it is still part of the problem, the mentality and the number of people that spoke out, particularly men, saying, well, yeah, of course Will was justified. The man insulted his wife. Well, his wife has made it very clear that, she's been very public about her hair loss. She's been very public about how she's embracing it and so forth. So in the context of it, they're very public people. They've expressed a lot of things very publicly. But what happened, regardless of who they are, regardless of them as celebrity, it speaks to something deeper in our society. There are women who supported Will's behavior. Said, yes, he's doing the right thing. He's defending his family. From what? From an insult? With violence? How is that justified in a civil society? And I did happen to listen to a very good podcast by Roland Martin, I believe it's his name. And he had some guests on there. He had a panel, he had two psychologists. Excellent conversation. It's on YouTube. I recommend you look it up, because he really brought up the entire depth of when we are triggered and when we don't do our own work, our own healing work. We call it healing work, but it's personal work. It's personal growth work. It's maturing. It's learning that, okay, I have triggers around these things. So I need to deal with that so that it doesn't explode in public. We're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it especially through the COVID situation, because people were stressed, because they were uncomfortable, uncertain of their futures, didn't like being restrained or not having their perceived freedom to come and go as they pleased. So we're seeing outbursts of racism, misogyny, just abuse on everyone. This is an erosion of civil society. However, I also see it as the more we actually witness it and observe it with a critical mind, look at it and say, is that really the society I want to live in? Is that really the way I want my politicians to talk to each other? I'm paying them, and they're in the House of Commons, or they're on Twitter, or they're on social media, and they're using very violent words. We need to have real serious conversations about nonviolent communication in our schools, in our workplace, in our homes, so that we can address the underlying symptoms here, the underlying indoctrination that has taught men that whenever someone else looks at their property, which is how they're being taught to see their relationships, their wives, their girlfriends, their people in their lives, that it's the my part, it's the ownership. You are disrespecting me because you are insulting my wife, my car, how often do we hear these things? And women have to learn that is not a sign of, oh, he loves me so much, he's willing to fight for me, he's willing to die for me, he's willing to confront someone for me because I am weak, because I'm a woman. That is absolute and utter rubbish. Women are not by nature weak. We have shown that throughout history. Women are not weak. It's a choice to play that. I don't have to suffer the consequences for my behavior because I'm going to be rescued. And these are roles. And I talk about that whole role playing that goes on in our human experience. But I really think this is much deeper than the one-time public moment. And I think it's something worth exploring and discussing rationally, reasonably, asking ourselves, is this really the world we want to live in? And what is at the root of all of this? Women are not property. Children are not property. We are here by virtue of divine inspiration. We are not something to enhance men's existence. We are co-creators. That's why it takes feminine and masculine energy to co-create. And so we are physically, we may not have the physical strength to do physical battle that men do, generally speaking. However, we are evolving. We are not having to fight for our lives daily unless we make it so. This is what goes to why people think they need a gun. They need because they're fearful. We have to get to this place where we're not triggered. Our fears are not coming up because somebody said something to us that we don't like, or somebody, is admiring your wife. Now you have to say, wait, she's my property. You can't look at her like that. any more than you would if they're looking at your car. Women are not objects. And men have been taught that it's a reflection on them. My wife is my object, and if you insult her, you're insulting me. And so I have to stand up and defend that, protect that. Like, this idea of protection. But in reality, are women and children being protected in their homes? That's where we have the real problem. And because we have such high statistics of domestic violence, it's playing out on the public stage. Those traumas, those wounds, we have a lot of wounded adults walking around that were traumatized as children, that were indoctrinated about what it means to be a man, what it means to be a man, to protect your wife and family, and from the outside world. But inside, who's protecting inside? And we protect not by hitting someone else. We protect by being secure, by giving that confidence and that security, and being so secure that someone else's insult just rolls right off your back, because we know not everyone's going to like us. We know that people will make fun of certain things, especially comedians, and that's another area. Maybe it's time for us to stop paying comedians to insult us or others and laughing at it. Maybe it's time we raise the bar on those things. Those are all questions worthy of exploring, I think. And so when you look at the big picture, when I look at the big picture, I see oppression of humanity through these old patriarchal beliefs. We are oppressing women by sending them the message that they're weak and they need a man to protect them, to defend them from the world. And at the same time, we are also oppressing men by asking them to do battle for women, for the weaker sex, as we've been taught so often, that women require this protection from the world, and that if you don't do that, you're not a real man. Or if you aren't willing to fight for what you love, that you're never going to have what you love. So there's a lot in this to unpack. There's a lot to explore. But we need to break free of these stereotypes, these indoctrinations that we have had through religion, through politics, through our societies and our cultures that have taught people that women and men are not equal, and that there's a necessity to fight for everything that you want in life, to fight, physically fight, go to war. When, there are better ways, and we need to address them. We need to look at these broken men that we have, and broken women that have so much trauma that has not been addressed, that's playing out in our workplace, in our homes, on the public stage. It's that trauma that keeps, if you don't break those cycles, your children will also inherit that same kind of mindset. If daddy protect mommy by hitting the neighbor, then I have to do the same. I have to grow up. If I'm going to be a real man, I have to grow up and fight. And that is not a real man, as far as I'm concerned. That is a man that has been indoctrinated into a belief system. Our true, authentic nature is to be love, to be respectful of each other, to respect each other's property, and to see humanity not as property, but as life force, which is what it is. It's not a commodity. We don't have status because of who we marry. That only reason we do that is because we've been indoctrinated to believe that. The person in your life has value to you when they value themselves. And I can't imagine the weight on men right now as they see what's playing out, and how many women are saying, yes, that's a real man, he's fighting for his family. When in fact, there was no threat. There was no threat. She was not under physical threat. if they really, there's so many choices. They could have got up and left. They could have, that would have made a huge statement. They could have spoken to Oscar people and said, this is off limits. My wife's sensitive about this, so no jokes about that. If they really wanted to get ahead of this, if they knew there is a history here, which has also been exposed, where Chris Rock actually made a joke at a previous Oscar ceremony, which they also didn't like. So fair enough. I'm sure that if you look through the history of the Oscars, there's been plenty of comedians who have insulted plenty of people because it is celebrity. It is the way they are trying to make themselves look more like regular folks who are just so happen to be, very, very wealthy and having all these privileges. So this is sort of almost as if it's part of the act to make the regular people more comfortable with that level of elitism. But when it comes right down to it, as we saw, there are just human beings like us playing out trauma on the public stage in that one particular incident. I think we can do better as a species. I think we can do better as people who are meant to be stewards of this planet, who are meant to live in harmony and stop hurting her and each other. I think we can do better in our evolution and in the messages we're sending our children. Most importantly, what are we telling our children, girls and boys? What kind of obligation are we putting onto them that they should expect they have to behave in a certain way as adults? I hope it will be one of nonviolence. That is my dearest hope. So I leave you with those thoughts, and I hope it's something to chew on. And until next time, take care. Be safe. Be kind. Be respectful. Consider, if you've got triggers, getting some help to heal them, to really grow yourself and not stay stuck in childhood trauma. It's a lot of work. I'm not going to kid you about that. It's a lot of work. I've done it, and I'm still doing it. So that's it for me for today. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for subscribing or following, liking, and sharing the podcast. It helps me grow this channel and hopefully reaches more people with an empowering message. It's always nice to know there is wisdom out there and you can tap into it. Visit the website for more information on how to be a guest, see the guest list and future shows and topics. And while you're there, I invite you to browse my acrylic art pieces on canvas and wood. They make an amazing home decor, high vibe art. And you'll also find the link to my storefront for luxurious women's fashions and home decor, created and designed by me with my art and manufactured in Montreal, Canada by Le Galeriste. And it is really amazing to have found them. They are environmentally conscious. They use a special dye that doesn't fade, and it's humanely manufactured. It is an awesome time to be on the planet and have these choices. So I invite you to explore and see if there is something there for you. Until next time, take care.